No one ever forgets the face of a mother. But what if that face was erased from your memory before you even learned your own name? Yuna grew up in a remote village with a family that wasn't hers. At 7, she looked at the sky and wondered why her heart raced when she heard certain songs or saw reunion scenes. She didn't know that what she lacked wasn't love. It was truth. The kidnapping that defined her life had been silenced, buried under convenient lies. And now, 20 years later, a forgotten detail awakens memories no one wanted back. But what she finds on the other side of the truth? Will it be home or another heartbreak? If you found out your life was built on a lie, would you forgive? Many people are watching our stories but not subscribing to the channel. If this one touched you, subscribe now, turn on notifications, and comment. Do you think Yuna will be able to forgive those who hid the truth for 20 years? Let's go to the end of this journey together. Yuna was kidnapped at 5 by a childless woman who raised her as her own. 20 years later, after an accident and a blood transfusion, the truth begins to surface. The adoptive mother, who truly loved her, now faces a truth that could tear them apart. Yuna embarks on a quiet journey leading to revelations, family secrets, and a love she didn't know she needed. But the reunion with her biological parents brings no peace. Only pain, guilt, and tough choices. And her unexpected connection with a young doctor involved in the case becomes the force, or the obstacle, that could help her find her true place. Get ready for an emotional journey filled with curiosity, pain, and healing that intertwine all the way to the last episode. And when it seems everything is resolved, one final revelation may change Yuna's fate once again. Yuna never quite knew where the emptiness inside her came from. She smiled, studied, lived. But something didn't fit. It was as if a crucial part of her had been lost. But what? And when? Raised by Sujin, a widowed nurse known for her cold professionalism but tender care at home, Yuna had enough to not miss the basics. But her childhood was a puzzle. No photos before age 6. No complete memories. Just fragments. A rag doll. A blue blanket with the name Yuna stitched in trembling hands. And a woman crying far away, in a place she couldn't identify. Sujin always said Yuna was unofficially adopted through a friend, after being abandoned by her biological parents. The story always had gaps, but Sujin's sweet and protective manner kept Yuna from asking more. Until the day fate decided to kick open the door she had always avoided. It happened on a rainy afternoon. Yuna was in an accident on her way home from university. A speeding car crossed the lane and threw her onto the asphalt. Internal bleeding. A fractured arm. An emergency transfusion. During the procedure, the hospital discovered a severe genetic mismatch between Yuna and Sujin's submitted information. Blood types didn't match. And the genetic profile flagged a possible identity falsification. The system marked it for risk analysis. Protocol followed. The hospital contacted Sujin for verification. Her answer was strange. Paused. Barely audible, she whispered on the phone. There must be a mistake. This doesn't make sense. But it did. And Ji-hoon, the young resident doctor in charge, noticed it. There was something in Sujin's eyes. Something dark. Fear. Guilt? He went against orders and dug deeper into old records. He discovered there was no valid birth certificate for Yuna until age 6. Even more disturbing, Sujin had worked at the same hospital where, 20 years earlier, a girl named Yuna had been registered as found alone, but the case was silenced days later without explanation. Ji-hoon didn't know how to tell Yuna. But the truth had to come out. In the hospital room, with the monitors beeping in the background, he said, Yuna, I think you were kidnapped as a child. And the person who raised you may not be who you think she is. Yuna didn't answer. She just felt the world spin. In the following days, flashbacks hit harder. A swing in a garden. Screams. A cloying perfume that burned her nose. And the face of a desperate woman holding a small coat. Hers. Back home, Sujin was waiting. Pale. Shaking. She didn't deny it. She just handed over an old box. Inside, a newspaper clipping with the headline, "Child Missing in Busan," a bracelet with the name, Kang Yuna, and a torn photo, showing a girl beside a couple. Yuna couldn't speak. She just listened. Sujin began her confession. After losing a baby at 8 months pregnant, she broke. Days later, she saw a little girl alone at the hospital. Crying, trembling. No one came for hours. Sujin said she was taking her to safety, but never returned her. She told herself she was saving a life, that the girl needed her. But deep down, she knew she was stealing a life that wasn't hers. Yuna stayed silent for days. Ji-hoon, worried, helped her search for the truth. They hired a private investigator. And soon, the truth exploded before her. Real name: Kang Yuna. Missing at 5 years old. Last seen in a Busan hospital. Parents alive. Never stopped searching. When Yuna saw a photo of her biological mother, Hee-kyung, she didn't need confirmation. It was like looking at her future self. The same eyes. The same pain. The same emptiness. But the reunion didn't feel like relief. It felt like judgment. What if they hated her for forgetting? What if they didn't want her anymore? What if their love had turned into grief? Still, Yuna decided to go. Ji-hoon went with her. In Busan, the investigator confirmed the address. In front of the simple door, Yuna hesitated. Her finger trembled over the bell. She rang it. The door opened slowly. A gray-haired woman, thin, with hollow eyes. She looked at Yuna for seconds. That felt like centuries. Then collapsed to her knees, screaming her daughter's name. Yuna Aya. The neighbors heard the cry. And there, between reunion and guilt, the truth began to demand its price. The courtroom fell silent after Yuna's testimony. The judges exchanged looks. The prosecutor fidgeted with his notes. Sujin's defense team said nothing. But everyone knew those words would change the direction of the trial. The following days were a nightmare for Yuna. Public opinion was divided. Some called Sujin a monster. Others saw her as a brave mother. Reporters swarmed the building where Yuna now lived with her biological parents. She couldn't go out alone. She received threats. And messages of support. A storm. Ji-hoon became her only anchor. He was always nearby, though with visible sadness in his eyes. He had known Sujin. He knew her kindness. But he also understood Yuna's parents' pain. He too was caught between two worlds. One night, Yuna had a nightmare. She relived the moment Sujin took her from the hospital. But in the dream, she cried and screamed for her real mother. She woke up screaming. Her biological mother ran in, but Yuna instinctively pushed her away. For a moment, the child still inside her rejected that stranger. "I'm sorry. I thought," she said, confused and crying. Her relationship with her biological parents began to strain. They were eager to rebuild the family. Wanted to go back to how it was. But Yuna was no longer that little girl. And maybe never would be again. The trial continued. Witnesses from Yuna's childhood with Sujin were called. Teachers, neighbors, classmates. All said the same. She was a good mother. Caring. Respectful. Yuna lacked nothing. The prosecution tried to stay focused on the crime. She kidnapped a child. Lived a lie. But Yuna's words kept echoing. This story isn't just about a crime. It's about love, pain, and desperate choices. An anonymous letter reached the media. In it, Sujin revealed details about her life before the kidnapping. She had lost her son in an accident. Fell into depression. Was close to ending her life when she saw Yuna alone in a hospital nursery. It was a moment of madness. A mistake. But to her, it felt like salvation. The defense used the letter. Claimed emotional trauma, deep grief, no malicious intent. The judge paused for several minutes before accepting the letter as valid. Meanwhile, Yuna battled unseen pain. She began to wonder, if Sujin had asked for help instead of acting on impulse, would their lives have been different? Seeing her distress, Ji-hoon suggested something radical. What if you dropped everything and traveled? Took a breath. Found yourself. This is destroying you. Yuna refused. She had to stay. She needed to see how the story ended, with her own eyes. She wouldn't run again. On the eve of the verdict, Sujin's lawyers asked Yuna to speak again. Not as a witness but as a daughter. She hesitated. Her biological parents opposed it. The press speculated. But in court, Yuna appeared. Her eyes steady. Her voice trembling. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just for you to listen. We all make mistakes when pain takes over. I lived 20 years of lies. But also 20 years of love. And no judge can erase that. The prosecutor argued that emotion doesn't replace justice. But the jurors were visibly moved. On sentencing day, time seemed to stop. The judge read slowly. Given the evidence, I sentence Kim Soo-jin to 5 years in prison, with eligibility for parole after 2 years, due to lack of violence, emotional context, and good conduct. Yuna burst into tears. Soo-jin too. The decision split the country. In the hallway, Hee-kyung argued with her daughter. You defended her. How could you? Yuna replied, firmly. I didn't defend the crime. I defended the woman who loved me when no one else was there. And that is my truth. Her relationship with her parents worsened. Mr. Kong distanced himself. Her mother cried daily. But Yuna had no regrets. She started writing. Created an anonymous blog to tell her story. No names, no judgments. Thousands began to follow. People who had also lived through trauma, reunions, loss. Yuna discovered that her pain could heal others. But the biggest transformation was still to come. Weeks had passed since the sentencing. Soo-jin was in custody, but in a rehabilitation center, not a regular prison. Yuna tried to move on, but something haunted her. A letter with no return address. Inside, just one sentence. You weren't taken by chance. Ask your mother. Frightened, Yuna showed the letter to Ji-hoon. Is this blackmail? He asked, wary. Or the last piece of this puzzle? Yuna replied, heart racing. She confronted her biological mother. Hee-kyung. Why would someone say I wasn't taken by chance? Her mother turned pale. Who sent you that? Answer me, Mom. Hee-kyung hesitated. Took a deep breath. Cried. Then said. When you were born, your father was drowning in debt. Someone offered to buy you. I said no, but in the hospital. Someone knew. Knew you were vulnerable. I never told anyone. It hit Yuna like a punch. She ran out, stunned. This wasn't just a kidnapping. It was part of a deeper web of pain. The next day, she visited Soo-jin for the first time since the verdict. Did you know about this? She asked, showing the letter. Soo-jin didn't respond at first. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't know everything. But I always thought it was too easy. Why didn't you tell me? Because even if it started wrong, I loved you right. Yuna left more confused than ever. But something inside her had shifted. For the first time, she wanted to find out who she really was. Not just the kidnapped child, not just the symbol between two families at war, but someone with her own story. She started investigating. Dug through hospital records. Found that a doctor had been dismissed back then for unethical conduct. His name? Dr. Oh Min-jae. With Ji-hoon's help, Yuna tracked down the ex-doctor. He was an old, withdrawn man with vacant eyes. Do you know who I am? she asked. His eyes widened. You're the baby from room 17. The confession came quickly. Dr. O had taken bribes to enable the diversion of babies from vulnerable families. Sujin was just another desperate woman ready to adopt illegally. But she never knew about the scheme. She thought she was saving an abandoned child. Yuna left devastated. Cried like never before. Her entire life had been built on lies. But also love. Returning home, she found her biological parents arguing. Her mother screamed at her father, blaming him for everything. You put her name on that list. You sold your own daughter. Yuna stepped in. Enough. Enough with the secrets. I'm not a transaction. I'm a person. I'll decide who I want to be from now on. She packed her things and left. Moved into a friend's home. Silence. Peace. For the first time in months, she slept soundly. The next day, she published the full story on her blog. Names, dates, details. It went viral. Among the comments, one stood out. I was taken from a hospital around that time too. Your story gave me courage to search for the truth. Thank you, Yuna. Her pain was changing the world. One evening, Ji-hoon asked to talk. Are you leaving for good? I don't know yet. But for the first time I feel like I have a choice. I'll go with you if you want. Yuna smiled. You've always been there, even when I didn't deserve it. He leaned in. And for the first time, kissed her. But the past hadn't said its final word. The sky was gray when Yuna received a strange envelope. It was plain with no return address, but inside was an old photo. A woman in a nurse's uniform holding a baby. On the back one line. She is still alive. Yuna went pale. She recognized the hospital. She recognized the woman's eyes. It wasn't Hyekyung or Sujin. It was someone else. But Yuna sensed this woman held a key to the truth. She dug through more archives, newspapers, and found her. Han Mi-suk, head nurse of the maternity ward at the time of Yuna's birth. Retired after a scandal that had never been explained. With Ji-hoon's help, Yuna found her in a rural house. When she knocked, an old woman with tired, deep eyes opened. You took your time, Yuna. Yuna froze. You know who I am? Mi-suk nodded. Invited her in. With a long sigh she began. You were part of a deal gone wrong. Your biological father, drowning in debt, came to me. I knew people interested in babies. He handed you over for money. Your mother, Hyekyung, never knew. When she discovered you were missing, she caused an uproar. We forged records, altered dates, silenced everything. Then Sujin came. She wanted you no matter the cost. Yuna sat in silence. Each word hit her like lead. You gave me to her? No. I only opened the door. But you weren't taken by strangers. You were sold by your own father. Yuna broke down in tears. The truth was all there. Raw. Painful. Unacceptable. That night, she returned to the city in silence. Ji-hoon held her hand but said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Days later, Yuna went to a small park from her childhood. She sat on a wooden bench. Took out her phone. Began to record. Hi. My name is Yuna. You may have followed my story. Today, I want to share the truth one last time. I was kidnapped. But not by a stranger. I was sold. By the one who should have protected me. And despite all this pain, I learned something. We might be born from a mistake, but we don't have to live trapped in it. I choose to forgive. Not for them. For me. For the peace I want to live with. She paused. Looked at the sky. And if you carry pain no one else understands, please, don't live as a victim. Use your pain as a bridge. Your story can heal others too. She ended the video with a gentle smile. Days later, the video reached millions of views. Emotional comments poured in. Yuna was invited to speak publicly, to write, to keep sharing. Sujin, now on parole, watched from afar. She didn't dare get close. But one day, sent a letter with a single line. "You are still my daughter. Even if the world says otherwise." Hekyung and Yuna's father are separated. He disappeared. She, ashamed, tries to rebuild the relationship. But Yuna moves forward. She studies psychology, started a support group for adopted adults. And every night, beside Ji-hoon, she smiles. Because she chose to live. If you made it this far, you know how deeply this story touches the soul. And you know how important it is to stop hiding the truth. If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel. Like, comment, share. You're watching, but you haven't subscribed yet. And that makes all the difference so we can keep telling stories that matter.